Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian, and we're continuing our coverage of the Paris Air Show, this time in Paris itself. Our coverage of the air show is sponsored by L3 Technologies and Leonardo DRS. And we have got with us Lieutenant General Arnie Bunch, who is the military assistant in the Office of the Air Force Acquisition Executive, who is effectively right now the acquisition chief of the Air Force. So we're getting you just before you get on the airplane and head back to Washington.
Yes, it's been a great visit. We've had a great time here. I'm glad to take the time to talk with you.
So tell us a little bit about what your priorities were at this air show. The Air Force always has a presence at this air show. Why was it so important for you to be here?
So it's really important to be here to show our partnership with the countries here and to show our partnership with France and how we do business together and how everything that we do is a coalition today. We need to work together. We need to continue to partner. So the big thing for me was to, number one, make myself available to other countries to talk and to share and to have dialogue, engage with industry, to make sure we're talking with industry and looking at what they wanted to tell me about that I needed to help them with. And the other one, we've had some very good media engagements across the board and talk about some of our programs. So it's been good.
Let me take you to more serious matters at home. The Air Force has said, the chief's been clear about it, and we've heard Secretary Wilson also talk about it, you've talked about it, you've testified, that the Air Force needs to be buying 150 combat aircraft a year in order to recapitalize the force, looking at the strategic threats the service and the nation face. This year you've got 46 airplanes that are in the budget for new build. And even that was a trade-off, even with a budget ramp that looks like it's moving slightly higher, but it's pretty much in the range of what the expectation was. What are some of the hard trade-offs you had to make, and what are the harder trade-offs the service is going to have to make to be able to shift resources to the tyranny of numbers to get the force size up to where it has to be for a peer competition scenario?
So really we do want to build up our tactical Air Force. I think if you go back and look, we put 12 F-35s on our unfunded priority list to Congress, and in testimony I said we only have so many resources and we're constantly doing a balance to make sure we're executing the mission. I think what we're going to do is continue to push to try to get to 60 on the F-35s. We're doing the light attack experiment now, and we'll see how that comes out and see if there's something there that we can use to replenish for the more permissive environments. So we are working with Congress and communicating what we need, but it's really a balancing act of when you have the nuclear modernization, which we really need to do. We're buying a new trainer. We're doing the KC-46. We got the B-21. We're basically recapitalizing a large portion of our Air Force. And those trades and the amount of missions that we have just aren't supported by what we've got for a budgetary authority right now, and we need to work with everybody to do a better job with that.
Are you satisfied with the cost ramps you're seeing on F-35 and your other major programs?
On the major programs, we really are. I'm seeing good work. Of course, the KC-46 program, I'll start there, that one's capped. So we're no longer, we're at $4.9 billion that we've expended on the program. The cost threshold is capped. We're not expending any more on that as long as we keep the requirements stable, so we're doing good there. B-21's performing the way I want it to perform. We're executing to the plan right now to move forward. On the F-35, we are seeing it come down the production lines and the learning curves the way we expect. Lockheed Martin's been a great partner driving in there. General Bogdan, before he retired, now Admiral Winters, have picked up that ball. And they know we want to see those costs continue to come down, so we're really in a good place on those programs right now.
Are you learning any lessons from the cost ramps that you've seen or the costings from programs that you've seen that are shaping how you approach future programs?
So what we are doing is we've done our should cost savings over the last 5 years, and over that 5 years we've actually cut about $12 billion out of the estimates, more than $12 billion out of the estimates that we had originally predicted. What we're doing is talking to our program executive officers who are running the programs, and we're explaining to them how the lessons learned, how did I do something in mobility that I can then apply to the fighter bomber portfolio? How did I do something in weapons that I can apply to the business systems portfolio? So we are sharing those lessons learned to try to drive down those costs and to get us into a position that we can be more effective. The other one I think we're doing a good job on, particularly on our bigger programs. If you look at what we did on the B-21, we did a very robust tech maturation and risk reduction phase. And if you go through that process, you're much more secure on what the risks are from a technical perspective for the programs, and you can apply that in, and it makes your cost estimates better.
One of the big challenges you have is you have a demand for a lot of stuff that is very expensive. And especially in a peer competition scenario, it's, as we saw in World War II, Lots of equipment will be chewed up. We saw that in Iraq and we saw it in Afghanistan, more I think than people had anticipated in terms of the wear and tear. And the wear and tear on the Air Force has been tremendous because that service has been literally in continuous operation since high intensity, a level of operation since 1990.
Very true.
And some of it very high intensity operations and globally engaged. Isn't it? And it's great to see an F-35 go from its cost down to like 80 million and maybe trend a little bit lower than that, because I think that that's the goal. But do we need a completely different paradigm shift to be able to get F-35 capability for a quarter of the price so that you can recapitalize that force, push that capability out there, and have it in the case of a high-intensity conflict that is going to burn up a lot of equipment very quickly?
So you are correct. We have been at war since 1990. We've continuously we went to the Gulf and we never came home. We've continuously flown our aircraft. We've put a lot of wear and tear on the 4th Gen fleet in particular. One of the things that the light attack, if we get through that and it shows promise and we can actually procure and find a way to do that at a lower cost to operate some of those, it'll allow us to upgrade those 4th Gen platforms, and it'll allow us to use the 5th Gen platforms for that high intensity, and we can alleviate some of that workload. That's one avenue, not exactly what you asked, but that is something we're very focused on. We are starting to look at the rapid fielding and the rapid prototyping language that Congress has given us, and we're looking to see if there's a way that we can prototype and field capabilities that may not be exactly what I would want for a 25-year development, but maybe I can do something in a shorter period of time, put certain numbers of a platform out there and execute with those, and then jump to the next technology so that we stair step and we jump, not we go from where we're at today to a 25-year development program to a big bang. So we're looking and exploring that. We're talking with industry. There are ideas industry has that we need to continue to explore. How do we keep that industrial base going? How do we keep that tech development going so that we can really address that threat of the future and that we can meet the nation's needs?
And basically, it may make, so what you're saying is it may make sense to have an not to go into a 1950s or 60s analogy, but it might be better to have an airplane that I'm going to use for 8 years or 10 years as opposed to try to design it for a 53 or 50-year through life.
That is exactly one of the concepts we're looking at. Can I do something that I put out at something every 8 years in smaller numbers and I don't, and continue that tech evolution? One of the things we are doing right now to try to advance that technology, you've heard me talk about before, is make sure we're putting open mission systems and modular systems into our platforms. It's in the B-21, it's in the J-Stars, it's going to be in the TX. And what we're doing with that is making it to where we can insert technology as the technology changes and advances, or the threat changes and we need to insert technology. We're creating an environment where we can refresh technology at a more rapid pace and keep moving forward.
I'm going to ask you about leasing, and I know that most airmen, when they hear the word leasing after the tanker issue in the early 2000s, have a tendency of flinching. That was remarkable. You didn't flinch, so that shows.
I was in the building when that transpired, so I am familiar with much of that.
And you survived with such little scarring. There are those, though, who say that this could be the right approach, especially for mission areas that are maybe not directly combat engaged and that require frequent refresh. A friend of mine was saying, hey, look, if you need a radar fleet or, a SIGINT fleet or whatever, why don't I just provide that service to the United States Air Force? All they do is provide the crews who get on the airplane, and at the end of the day, or maybe, we do it for them. Where do you think leasing works and where do you think leasing doesn't work?
So we do not, as you know, do a lot of leasing today for capabilities or what we're doing. But what we are trying to push our team to, we have a transformation office in AQ that works with industry and gets ideas, and we explore those ideas to see if there's a more efficient and a better way that we can do business. One of the ones that we've actually looked at leasing in some ways are the engines that we may try to do for a B-52 re-engineering program. Not saying we're going there, but what I want to have the ability to do is look and use all the acquisition authorities that we have to look at any means to procure those capabilities as efficiently and effectively as we can to get it out into the field. And what I really want to try to avoid is a cookie cutter, you have to use this contract methodology, you have to use this kind of an acquisition strategy. What we really want to do is be empowered to be able to use all the authorities that we have. There are times that a fixed price contract's perfect. There may be times that leasing something is perfect. We just want to explore all those opportunities. So we haven't done a whole lot in there. We are exploring and looking at what the options are. And then we'll make those decisions. The one thing we will do on this one that we've learned very clearly on a lot of our programs, we really need to be very transparent and clear with what we communicate to congressional leadership and to defense leadership so that everyone understands really where we're going, so that there's no surprises and everyone's on the same sheet.
Let me take you to the KC-46 program. This was straightforward. It's a fixed price development contract, and Boeing and Airbus both knew what they were getting to at the start of that competition. But the KC-46 has had challenges. It's now got the latest delay to it. It's been costly. I discussed it with Leanne Corrette, the Boeing Defense CEO, Defense Space and Security CEO. From your perspective, are you concerned that this program, how concerned are you that this program keeps slipping? And at what point does it start to reflect on your thinking about the prime and its ability to execute work like this?
So I get frustrated anytime a schedule slips. I want everything to be done as quickly as we can. We need to get equipment out into the hands of the young men and women we're sending into harm's way. That's our most valued treasure. I want them to have the latest, greatest, so they have a decided advantage and we can project air power anywhere around the world at any time. So I do get frustrated anytime we have a slip. What I will say on this, Boeing has been a remarkable partner. They understand the fixed price incentive firm contract that we signed up to, that we've capped it out. They have never backed away from the commitment to deliver the platforms. We are working with them very diligently to try to make that schedule that they've talked to people about trying to do. We want to continue to make sure they have the resources. I very much, and I told Ms. Corrette this week, personally, I want them to be successful. I want us to work with them to make them successful. So we are in dialogue. We do realize we have a little bit of a disconnect right now with what we believe the schedule is and what they believe the schedule is. But I'm committed to trying to support them in any way they can to make that happen. And we just need to continue to see progress. Here over the next few weeks, we should get through some FAA certifications. If we get through those, that should open up a backlog of test points that have been blocked, and then we'll be able to move out, and we'll have a better assessment of where we're really at here in just a few months.
So it's not clear exactly how much the program will be delayed by at this point.
Well, Boeing has said they want to deliver an aircraft by the end of the year. We want them to be able to do that. What we want to do is continue to support them by making sure the resources that we're supposed to provide to support the test program are there. We're looking at, does the system perform the way it does, if is anticipated, and if it does, then there's a chance maybe we don't have to do all the testing we had planned. There are a variety of different things the team are working out, so I'm not ruling out that we'll be able to pull the schedule back to the left some, but we need to continue to stay focused on it, and we need to continue to see improvement.
Do you see any lessons learned from this that can be applied to other derivative programs? Because almost everything the Air Force, a large part of what you have to upgrade in the future are those derivative aircraft that are now 135 airframe based, rivet joint, AWACS, joint stars. Are there any lessons here that you're deriving that would be applicable to the structure of these other programs?
We take lessons learned from all of our programs, not just ones that look like a tanker program to another program that might be a platform similar. We take lessons learned out of what we're doing in weapons and we apply them. So we're constantly doing that to look at how would we acquire and what acquisition strategy we go forward with. That's constant. We have to do that to make sure we're capitalizing on those great ideas that our people are coming up with. We got to capitalize on those on every front.
We are the only nation that is fielding a gigantic force of fifth-generation fighters and is thinking about a sixth-generation fighter. Navy and Air Force have increasingly been talking about something about what their airplanes should look like and getting those studies forward. There are some folks who look at the Joint Strike Fighter program and say, look, never again. Navy's got to do its thing. The Air Force has got to do its thing. Others are saying, wait a minute, there could be a very large amount of commonality between these jets and the technologies that goes into them. Bring us up to speed on what you're doing with your Navy counterparts toward that end, and how common will these aircraft be at the end of the day from your perspective?
So it is interesting that we are so focused on sixth when we're just putting fifth out, but if you're the most dominant air power the world has right now, and the world has watched you and they've adopted and adapted their defenses and their technologies to try to preclude your ability to maintain air superiority, which is key to anything we want to do. And it is not a birthright. We have to invest to continue to keep air superiority. We have to take that next step and go forward. So we are investing in technologies. I won't go into details about what we're doing there. What I will say is we are in a very collaborative engagement with the Navy. The Navy and us are sharing information. We've got the right clearances for everybody to share back and forth. We're both doing analysis of alternatives right now where we look at what that next generation air dominance would look like. So we're going through that process, and we're sharing regularly where are you on this technology, where are you, having that dialogue. We've got a very collaborative environment set up. How common will the platform look like? I can't tell you that right now. The missions are different for what we're trying to do. What I can say is if we're making advances in technology, we're informing them so that they can learn from that. And what we don't want to do is have both of us off in a closet building something and coming out and we've both invested in the same area. Some duplicative, some redundant, I said duplicative, not the right word. Some redundant investments are good because you want to make sure you have multiple paths. The path that they may go on a program may not pan out, but the path we do may. They may have the best answer, and we need to collaboratively work that. So we are very closely working with the Navy in a lot of different areas right now.
Let me take you to the lower end of the spectrum, the OAX.
Yes, sir.
Is this an experiment or a harbinger for how the Air Force will do business in the future? Everybody's deriving all sorts of lessons, and I can't think of anybody better to ask about the question than you. Is this a test to see how the idea works, or is this actually a way that you're going to see yourself do business in the future?
So you asked me an or question, and I'll give you the absolute worst answer you want, which is yes. The reality of it is it's both an experiment, and we are in this experiment, we will see, is this a methodology that we may be able to apply in other areas or even to this area later on once we show what capability we have to maybe be able to procure some things in a faster manner. This one is unique. We've not done this in quite some time. One of the things that had atrophied out of the Air Force, we weren't doing quite the level of experimentation that we wanted to. So we set this program up to go try something. We're allowing industry to come in and with off-the-shelf where they're at so that we can assess. And that's phase one. Phase one we'll look at the data, and if it all goes well, then we will go into a phase two. A phase two would, which we're still working all the details on, would be a combat demo where we would take aircraft and put them actually in and see how they perform in combat. And then all of that will inform what we will be looking at, is the financial, is there a business case to be able to procure this based on how little it costs to fly versus what I would spend on a 4th gen, coupled with how, if I don't have the 4th gen doing that mission, are they able to better prepare for a higher end fight. So all those are going to be parts of the dynamics and the equation that we're looking at, but it also allows our acquisition people and our requirements people and our experts to collaboratively work on this and say, okay, how could we apply this in other areas? So there are going to be lessons we learn out of this. I've told some industry people yesterday in meetings, separate meetings with them, that there is 0% chance we have this 100% right. We're going to learn out of this, and we need industry to tell us how we learn out of this, and we need to be innovative and creative as we go forward. Because really what we've got to do, we're doing really well on controlling our costs for the most part. We have a couple of examples of a couple of exceptions. We're doing really good on performance. What we got to now work on is how do I get that technology to the field in a faster manner. So that's what we're looking at.
Are you one of those who, when he looks, there are some who argue, hey, look, the Air Force should just buy more F-16s and more F-15s as a bridge. There are others who say every dollar the Air Force has got to go into the next generation capability. Are you one of those people who say it's time to put the money in the next generation capability?
So the way we have talked about it, the high-end fight, we have got to invest and modernize. We have got to do that to be able to adjust to what our potential adversaries have done after watching us. We've made it very clear in our communications that a light attack option, should it be there, we would not take money out of modernization to go do that. We would need additional money to be able to go do that. And additional money means platforms, it means people, because we got to maintain them. There are a lot of benefits out of this that we'll weigh all out so that we can make an informed decision. But I'm definitely one of those that we've got to keep focused on the future. We've got to keep focused on the high end, because that's the area that our readiness is its lowest right now. If you look at all the areas, that area is one that's just because of the demand signal for air power all around the world right now, it continues to go up. And that's a really important area that we need to get to, is we've got to focus on that longer term.
You've been very patient. Let me ask you just a couple of more questions before we finish off, because this interview has been a long time coming. There are those in the Air Force who've always argued that the F-35, as the F-35 is going to be, the Alpha is going to be key, and we saw it strutted stuff at the show. Absolutely wild crowd.
Very
with
well
the
done.
Extremely well done. Alan Norman, the Lockheed Martin pilot, did a tremendous job in that demonstration. But there are those who've always argued that the Air Force should have some Bravos for short field capability, for damaged runways, to be able to do dispersed operations. Has there been any reconsideration of the Air Force buy on the F-35 at this point?
So I've not been in part of any dialogue about that we would go to Bs. We're very happy with the As. We believe it's the most capable platform. We're very happy with its performance. That's our focus right now. Go to the number we've got in the program of record, keep moving out, try to get to 60 as quickly as we can, and keep moving forward. That's not a dialogue that I'm having about going to Bs.
Two questions. First question, there's been a vigorous debate about conservatism and risk-taking. Historically, the very people who argue you should take risk are the ones who penalize you after you take the risk and God forbid something goes wrong. Perhaps some of those people are up in Congress, for example, who do that. In the case of SpaceX, for example, the Air Force was very conservative. The company was let in. The company said things were going to be very low cost. They've been a little bit higher cost than people thought. And so it begs the question, at what point does the service let go, for example, of things that it knows work, even if they're a little more expensive, but for critical mission applications, for the promise that something could be significantly cheaper but may not be as reliable? How do you make this trade-off shift? Because in space launch in particular, there are things that are expensive but work. How do you make that balance and that trade-off?
Yeah, it's really you're right, it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act of how critical is it that it absolutely has to work perfectly, and how much risk can I take and how it goes. And we are weighing those out more. Ms. Costello and I are encouraging our program executive officers to, particularly on our lower dollar threshold programs, we're delegating authorities down. We're making an effort to give the authorities down below the program executive officers where it's appropriate, and allow the colonels and the GS-15s and the 14s make decisions and move on. So what we're trying to do is empower the people at a lower level to make the decisions and the calls so that we can continue to move forward at a faster pace. In some ways, that's risk. It's not going up to the program executive officer. She and I believe that's very low risk because we have absolutely expert professionals at the colonel and the GS-15 and the lower levels. But we are looking at those constantly of, can I take risk in this area? Is it how much risk do I want to take in the nuclear area, or how much risk do I want to take in a business system? So each acquisition or each program you have to look at differently, because as one of my program executive officers said, if you've managed one program, you've managed one program. Every one of them is different. There are different details, and you have to look at each one independently. But she and I are very much into the mindset of, tell us what the risks are if you want to try something new. If you explain it to us and it seems reasonable to do, then we will accept that. We will be the ones that take the heat from anybody that wants to accuse us of doing something wrong. That's our jobs. And we will protect those people, and we need to empower them to be able to do that. We need a couple of those to be successful. And then even if something doesn't go right and we support those people in the right way, we'll create an environment where the others will be willing to take that risk and go forward. And you made a comment that there are a lot of people trying to help us in a lot of ways. There are a lot of people that are very focused on national security. It's very critical to everybody. And we realize the interest that Congress and the media and the industry and everybody has in those areas. And that's one that we just have to continue to work with and be able to move forward on.
You're a longtime acquisition professional. It seems that everybody from Congress to the president is giving advice on how to do improve military acquisition. From your standpoint, what is helpful? What's the right course ahead, and what isn't?
So for one, it's interesting to be in a position that everybody cares so much that we're trying to come up with ideas on how to go do it better. Everybody has ideas, and we want to dialogue with them about those ideas, so that's all great. They're all, as I said again, everybody's very focused on national security and they want to move out. What I have been talking with people is, let's be creative. Let's get the right people in the room as we start the program, so that the best thing I can do is get all the right people in the room, from the requirers to the acquirers to the testers to the maintainers. all those people together as we start the program so that we set a clear path on where we're trying to go. Understand what those requirements are. Dialogue with industry is critical, because sometimes what I want to ask for, I can't get from, I may be asking for too much. So there's got to be a transparency there with the industry, there's got to be a transparency there within the government. And then what I'm asking for is just give us the full flexibility of the authorities that we have. Congress has been very helpful with rapid fielding, rapid prototyping language. They put language in to give the services back support, or let them be the milestone decision authority. We have to employ those and see how those authorities are going to work. We applaud that. We appreciate that. Their support in those areas. And we need to demonstrate and then continue to build on the lessons learned like I talked to you about earlier.
And are you concerned at all about the split in the OSD acquisition authority in the legislative language that split the office, or do you have any concerns about how that's going to work in the future?
So the only thing that I've asked for there, and I've been in the media about it as well, is that the congressional intent of pushing programs back to the Air Force or back to the services seems pretty clear. We hope that the way it gets aligned, it goes in that direction. And the other one is whenever the split is done, what we really want is we need clear lines of authority and what each of those organizations is going to do, so that we don't have duplicative efforts going both ways. I think one of the keys will be when an ATNL replacement is announced, and how they do that, I think, will be extremely critical for how we go forward.
Sir, thanks very much. We really appreciate it, and have a great flight home.
Have a great day. Thank you very much. It's good to see you again.